Welcome to the podcast. Today, my guest is Nathaniel Andrew, but we're going to call him Nate. Is that right?
Yep, that's good.
What was your first memories of music as a child?
That's a very good question. I grew up in a very musical family, so we would always, my mum and dad would play music non-stop. The family would sing.
How big a family?
lot. Oh, massive family. Yeah, so my dad's side is from, his father's side was from Vanuatu, and then his side was from, his mother's side was from Yorta Yorta country in Victoria, New South Wales. And we have massive family there. And then my mum's also Yorta Yorta. And so, yeah, we've thousands of people in the family and a very established history in the political and arts space too. So,
okay.
I guess unconsciously it was, I can't remember a specific moment, but I do remember just being surrounded by it. And yeah, it sort of led unconsciously to just doing what you do.
You play multiple instruments. What's your favourite instrument to play?
Depends on the circumstance. I mainly play bass and guitar. With bass, I've spent a lot more time practicing and developing the craft and just shedding the instrument, trying to challenge my brain to think of new ways to play it and really find a voice. Whereas the guitar was something that I sort of picked up. My older brother played guitar, and so I sort of picked it up off him. So when there's something that's sort of just you pick up unconsciously, it's different to when you concentrate on something. So my guitar skills developed a lot quicker with less focus than what my bass skills did.
Okay.
Because, it's like when you really focus on something and you're trying to find it and then you stop focusing on it and then it's right in front of you. It's that sort of thing. And so, but yeah, because of that, then I found that guitar, I can be a lot more expressive naturally without too much thinking, whereas bass, it takes a bit of mathematical calculations to figure it out. So it depends on circumstance, it depends on style of music.
When did you start playing bass? How old were you when you started learning?
I was just turned 10 years old. So yeah, still in primary school.
And why bass?
Well, I wanted to play basketball. I wanted to be a professional basketball player. And my parents were like, nah, like, dude, don't, you break your leg, that's it with your career. So my older brother played guitar. He was studying guitar. And I went through guitar, singing, and I was, this is, just doing things because your parents tell you to do it. And I think my dad was like, well, you should play bass because your brother plays guitar. And I didn't know anything about the roles of instruments, but we had the Ibanez catalog.
Yep.
And flicked through and there was this really nice bass. It was based on a off-white jazz bass copy with a turtle shell pickguard. And I was like, I really like that one. And yeah, started getting lessons on it and used to jam a lot on it, but nothing clicked.
Where were you living around this particular point in time?
I was up in Mackay. Yeah, so born and raised up in Mackay. And yeah, the scene's fairly small, but my guitar teacher, he did a lot of work down in Currumbin and at Twin Towns for years. He was like a session guy on the bands and stuff like that. And he moved to Mackay, and yeah, so I started getting lessons with him, and yeah, that was sort of the catalyst for teaching me how to be a professional musician, not just learning the notes, but making sure you dress the part, you look the part, you show up on time, you can you read music, anything that gets you more work. He was very important in that. So yeah, I owe a lot to him. Lucky, yeah, he's still with us. So yeah, very grateful for everything he's offered. But yeah, so me and my brother would get lessons with him.
Do you remember your first gig?
Yeah, I was 13. I was 14, and my brother got called to do a gig, and he didn't want to do it for whatever reason. So then they were like, oh, well, chuck me on the gig. And
you played guitar?
And play guitar, yeah. And it was all like 50s and 60s rock and roll stuff. And I had
a lot of 145.
Yeah, oh, it was more like Ventures and Shadows.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Yeah, Dre and Eddie and that stuff like that. So I had a list of 40 instrumental songs that I could play, and it was like Walk Don't Run, Rebel Rouser, like all this stuff. And so I had charts to everything as well. So I would rocked up to the gig, put the charts out, and yeah, did a set of instrumental stuff.
Oh, wow.
That sort of started. Yeah, so I started on guitar, even though I was playing bass for a lot longer in the gig scene.
What got you from Mackay down to Brisbane?
It was, I moved to Brisbane in 2014. Previous to that, I was living in the States for a couple of years. And
okay.
So I did my bachelor's degree in jazz in Mackay.
Mm-hmm.
And my university lecturers had said, look, you know, you should continue this and further your studies. So they helped me to get into an American university. So I went to, it was University of Cincinnati in Ohio. And I got into uni there, lived there for about 2.5 years, moved back home.
So what was that experience like?
It was cool, man. The main part of that whole experience, which I look back on, and it was like the defining moment was, before I moved over there, I went into the record shop and bought this Earth, Wind and Fire DVD. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know much about funk music at the time. And I looked at the DVD case, and it's, you know, they're all dancing and they got these nice suits on and everything.
Sparkly.
Yeah, didn't know any songs. I think I maybe knew September.
Yeah.
And so then, I bought the DVD, took it home, and I was like blown away. I was like, whoa, this is funk music. Like, and so I used to watch it on repeat for like 3 years, every morning, put it on. So yeah, that led to, once I finished my degree, and I got into the University of Cincinnati, I went over there to do an audition, and I went to this jam session in like the rundown part of the city.
Yeah.
You know, people got stabbed and shot there, and my mate was like,
a bit of a culture shock.
Yep. Like, because it was like, you know, living in a movie when you go to America for the first time, and went into this bar, and it's like this, it's all black people in the bar, and they've got this room set up with like all this Egyptian statues and a throne and everything like that. And there's no one at the jam except for the bartender, 2 guys at the bar, and then there's people playing jazz in the corner. And I got talking to the bartender, and he said, "Oh, what are you into?" And I said, "Oh, you know, I'm here to study jazz, but I'm really into funk." And he said, "Well, you know, Cincinnati's like one of the birthplaces of funk." And I was like, "I didn't know." And he started listing off artists, and I was like, "Wow, like these are my inspirations for bass playing." Coincidentally, I landed in a place where I was meant to be. And sort of worked out from there.
What do you think that you got out of the experience in the US that you wouldn't have got from here?
Culture. Before I went to America, I was doing a lot of, because Mackay was just mainly pub gigs and, you know, little corporates and like RSLs and places like that, which is great learning ground. I mean, if you can survive in a pub gig, you're right. And so, so I was getting a lot of gigs there and learning jazz and especially African-American music styles. Like I understood it, but coming from a cultural background, I knew there was some elements that I needed to feel, you know, like you can't play pub rock music if you're not playing, you can't play it in a church, you know, it's not the same. Yeah. And so, when I moved to America, it's like, the culture, like, it's a dog-eat-dog culture over there.
Okay.
Whereas up in Mackay where I grew up, it was very relaxed and calm. You know, the beach is there, like, you know, plenty of resource and stuff like that. But over there, it was like people were, you had to work to survive. And so the level of musicianship where I was, especially in the jazz scene, because jazz didn't pay that much. So the level of musicianship was super high. And
only the best guys got the coin.
Yep.
So you had to be the best, otherwise.
Yeah. Because I was at a uni too, like there was contacts that I made with people, so I got into the scene a bit quicker. But it was still the level of competitiveness that that drove me to succeed in that space that I couldn't get here. But also the culture of it all. Because, well, I could go into those places and people would see me and they'd assume something by the way I looked.
Yeah.
But when I spoke, I was an Aussie. And so all their stereotypes got washed away. So I was lucky enough, I could go into, I had a residency at a Black Baptist church, and it was amazing. It taught me music and like culture and so many things. And then I was playing in Latin bands. And then I was in like the deep South in people's houses that, you know, probably I wouldn't be allowed into now. You know, like, so I was getting access to this culture that my accent allowed me access to. And like just seeing these different things that people in America couldn't see because they were ingrained in the culture, where I was like, this is an external person coming through. Did
you have any real negative experiences? Did you experience racism while you were there?
Not really. No. Actually, I did get, I felt like in first look I got stereotyped sometimes, but it wasn't,
People are very accepting?
Yeah. And I guess it was the places I was in too. Because like if I was doing a salsa gig, it was largely around the Hispanic community. So, and they just guessed I was Hispanic. So there was no problems there. And, you know, same if I went to the black church, it was like, oh, you know, one of us. And, so I didn't really experience it. And being up in the Northwest too, it was a different culture up there. So Cincinnati was right on the border of, it's on Ohio and Kentucky, separated by the Ohio River. So Cincinnati was largely a black population.
Okay.
And when you cross the river, it was largely white population.
Okay.
And it was like, you know, guys in overalls and trucker caps vibe with
rednecks.
Trucks. Yeah. Whereas the other side, it was like, I'd drive to the ghetto and all the men would wear the same thing, because if the police were after someone, it was racial profiling because they were all wearing the same thing. Oh. And so it's all these different cultural information that was feeding into my brain that I was like, you know, seeing this outside perspective, not being brought up in that culture, using that within my artistic expression based on what I learned back home here. And it sort of created this soup of uniqueness, I guess, for expression. So but didn't really experience any stereotypes or racism outside of being a jazz musician and playing electric bass. Yeah, like a lot of people were upset I didn't play upright bass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever played an upright bass?
I bought one years ago to start practicing it, and the neck fell off it because the humidity got to it.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a skinny guy and I'm lazy and I don't want to carry.
They're heavy too and
big.
big.
It lasted about a month and I was like, this is not for me.
When you got back to Australia, like how did the mindset from over there, how did that help you here?
I guess something that I had in my 20s was, and I think maybe it's a jazz mindset, it's like self-sabotaging your how you think about your playing. And so you never see yourself in a positive light. You always see the things that you need to work on. Mm-hmm. When I went over there, it was like hustle culture, and I got a lot of work and built up a good reputation and stuff like that. And when I moved back, the expectations were different. Okay. And you know, speaking about stereotyping, I experienced it more in Australia because in some places I'll step into, they would see my race before they saw my musicality.
Oh, wow.
And when I step into that space, it's like, oh, you're different to what we expected, yeah. And it's like, well, you know, and so there was a bit of, I guess, self-sabotage with my own thinking about how I played. So then I tried to push harder, and then, you know, when you first start out, you take every gig you can get to, you know, build that reputation. And so I took every gig I could get. A lot of people saw me as a musician. Yeah. And then there was other people that saw me for whatever reason, you know, and the one thing I noticed moving back to Australia was the tall poppy syndrome. There was like comparisons, well, you're not as good as this, you need to be like this person. I'm like, this is like, it messed with me for a while, but then I guess that's the part of, you know, developing your musical maturity is realizing that, you know, you're unique. And
everyone is unique, and it's almost like there's a culture of trying to stamp that uniqueness out.
Yeah. Yep.
which is just backwards.
Yep. Yep. And it's strange here because there's so much work, and there's not really enough musicians.
Really?
There's
not a lot of there's a lack of bass players.
Yeah. Yep.
There's 100 million guitar players.
Yeah. And so
There's some great drummers around.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's a good, like, I love that. The most about moving to Brisbane was just the diversity of musicians here. The diversity of backgrounds, experience, knowledge, respect too. Like, I feel like there's a baseline level of respect across the industry. And with drummers and bass players especially, like, there's really good bass players here and really good drummers. And
yeah, the quality is very high.
Yeah. Yep. And so, there's no real problems with, like, saying yes to gigs because you know that there's a certain level that everybody's at. And yeah.
You've done quite a lot of things in the education sphere. How did you get involved in that, and why?
I started teaching when I was 15, teaching basic guitar and bass. I grew up around a lot of role models that, so like I was fortunate enough to have great grandparents in my life. Mm-hmm. And so I got to see how my great grandparents taught my grandparents who taught my parents. And then so I got to see in a cultural sense.
How the information got passed down.
Yeah. And the difference in how it was provided, and to the level and to the how meaningful it was provided and stuff like that. So like, you know, it's like the relationship between the son and the father is different between the son and the grandfather. And, you know, then it's different between that. So growing up in that environment, there was that sort of influenced me to give and share knowledge. I have a lot of family in that space as well. So either politically or educationally or socially. So I had role models that I could look up to and that I was surrounded by. And so there was that sort of natural expectation that, you know, because I'm from this family,
that would happen.
You need to contribute. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I grew up with a great teacher that taught me all this stuff musically. When I went to America, I found another teacher who taught me, and he was a African American jazz guitarist, like from the 70s.
Oh wow!
And he his name was Wilbert Lohmeyer, and he got signed to Tappan Zee Records, which was run by Bob James and. I can't remember who the other person was, but George Benson, they were mates. Like they were sort of competing at that time with each other.
Yeah.
And one thing that one of my friends told me when I went to America was, if you really want to find the intention of music, African American music especially, you need to find someone who lived through that time and where it means something to them. Because sometimes with academic education, it's textbook, and you're learning from people who, you know, it's like 3 degrees of separation, whereas what my friend was trying to say in a nutshell was, don't have the separation, just go straight to the source.
Yeah.
And so I found that person, and he taught me music. He taught me space.
Music from the heart.
Groove. Yeah, like all the things that I didn't cover in uni, he taught me that. And so I've always looked for people as mentors, as teachers, and using that information, processing it, and then speaking about it, because when you express it and it becomes real, there's you can actually do something with it. Whereas if you think too much about it, it sort of bottles up and nothing gets done. So teaching is very important to me. I don't consider it teaching. I consider it more like coaching.
Okay.
Yeah. I've stolen this from Victor Wooten. It's the coach mentality is we're going to try to find ways to bring out the best in you to express yourself. Whereas the teaching thing is do what I tell you. And so the coach mentality allows that person to find out how they do it, what makes them unique, and
a certain level of self-discovery.
Yeah.
And bring and encouraging that.
Yep. And it's not cookie cutter mold. It's let's find what works for you.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it.
So I love it. I see that as the same way as performing with what you give the audience. It's, there's a reciprocal.
There definitely is with a live audience.
Yeah.
It's like a conversation backwards and forwards almost.
Yep.
What is your favourite gig to do? Of the gigs that you've played and the ones that you do on a regular basis, what's your favourite gig and why?
Oh, the gigs I love the most are the ones where, I've got a specific gig that I can talk about. that I love doing, and it was in America, and it was in this burger joint with neon signs, very small room, like about a little bit bigger than this space. There was peanut shells all over the ground. People would eat peanuts and just chuck the shells on the ground. And every Friday and Saturday night from like 10:30 to 1:30 in the morning, we'd get paid $50 each. We'd rock up and we'd play. And sometimes we wouldn't take a break.
When you say we, so how many piece band?
It changed. We usually had drums, a keyboard player or a guitarist on harmony, and then we had a trombone player and a sax player, or trombone and trumpet. And we would play all the funky jazz jam things. So we would, anything from James Brown to Jaco Pastorius, Weather Report stuff to standards. And yeah.
So it's quite diverse.
Yeah. And it was, the level of musicianship was quite high, and because the audience is sitting right there, so you're feeling that vibe. But we were listening to each other, developing conversations in real time, and then had that flexibility to explore. And if you didn't want to follow the form of the song and you wanted to go off and walk over here and then come back, so that's sort of my favorite gig, is one where there's enough structure, there's space and respect for the other musicians to allow them to fly. And also there's a chance for you to think of new ways to do something and have the space to do it in front of people. Because I think the pressure of having a live audience is the thing that makes you better. When you're in the practice room, you can do it,
There's no safety net when you're live.
Yeah.
There's no, hang on a second, I'll go back and do that again and practice. It's out there, and once it's done, you can't go back and fix something. It's a certain amount of pressure to perform, but I guess there's also one of the great things about live performance is, and I'm curious whether you feel the same, but when you're performing live, there are times when you think that you're on fire, and it's like you're having the best time, and the audience is having the best time, but it's actually just a moment in time. And if you record that moment in time and you go back and listen to it later, it's like, it can sometimes go, geez, I sucked. I was terrible. But in that moment, it was amazing. And the audience. So I guess, how do you see that, and what do you think that is?
Oh, I love this stuff. One of the things that being in the black church, I saw the circle actually. It was the relationship between the congregation and the pastor. Mm-hmm. And the pastor would preach in order to invoke a feeling and emotion and connection with the congregation, mm-hmm. and then they would give that back in a certain way, and then so it would be like a feedback loop, and it would just get louder and louder and louder, and so taking that thing, in a jazz sense, it's the same thing. It's like the feedback loop of taking an idea, developing it, allowing you that space, and then you take that to any other gig. Again, the feedback loop. It's like, I'm going to give you something, and then you give me something back unconsciously that I need that may not be of value to you, but it allows me to do this thing. It creates the feedback loop. And there's a quote that I love by Reggie Wooten, and he says that it's something along the lines of, entertainers, we allow the audience to enter attainment. And to me, it's the attainment of music. It's the attainment of emotion. It's the attainment of freedom. And it's something that we can, as artists, evoke in our listeners, and it helps us to achieve it by helping them to achieve it. And so it's not really about us in a musical sense, I guess, in that space. Then it's more about them, and then they give us what we need, and then it gets louder.
Do you think of music as being a very cathartic experience?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Or I think art in general. I love studying comedy, because there's and martial arts. I can't fight. When I say I study martial arts, I read books by Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali and stuff like that.
So you got into the psychology of it.
Yeah, the thinking of it, and when you go into that space, it's exactly the same way as what we think about. And it's like the instrument, whatever we play, whether it's the voice or a guitar or bass, whatever it is, we're using it as a way to get to a place. like a vehicle. You're trying to reach a destination. So in doing so and in getting to that space, it allows you to leave, you're not thinking about bills, you're not thinking about this or that. You're just in a space where you feel.
Yeah.
And you allow other people to feel. And, I think in today's society, especially, we like the social media, news and everything that has sort of dampened our ability to feel and be empathetic towards each other. And that's something that us as musicians and artists that we have that responsibility to continue and to evoke that within our audiences.
Do you think that that's particularly with music? I mean, and most visual arts, I guess, it's a frequency thing. Like with visual arts, it's seeing colours which is a range of frequencies that the eye see. And with music, it's a range of frequencies that your ears hear. And it's your whole perception of the world is based around what you see and what you hear, and to some degree what you taste. And I guess that's another, whether you would consider culinary delights to be artistic or not.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Do you think that music has a healing quality, and is that based on a frequency thing? I mean, I've read things about it being that way. Culturally, with your Aboriginal heritage, how does music fit in with that?
It is life. It is being. It's within culture. It's a holistic view of it. It can't be taken apart and segmented and analysed. So I've had experiences outside of my own tribe, but in other communities where I've heard music and felt the effects of it. I didn't understand what they were saying, but the way these people were performing it, emoting it, the pitch, because some of them, it wasn't at 440. It was in the key of the land. It was in the key of the moment. And so, yeah, that stuff has definitely, I really think there's in connecting with the music, the frequencies and all that sort of stuff. I'm big into the conspiracy theory side of things with that whole 440, 432.
Well, I was going to mention that, but I don't, and it's an odd, there's a lot of controversy around that thinking.
Yeah. Yep. I'm sorry. I should rephrase and say I'm not into the conspiracy side of things, but the thinking of different frequency measurements and how that can be used. Well,
you've seen with frequency experiments when you vibrate a piece of wood or something and put salt on it, and it makes patterns.
Yeah.
So obviously. Vibration, which is a frequency, has an effect. Like you can do it with water and put sound on a water and it changes the shape of the water makes.
Yep.
So it obviously does have an effect. And we're a large percentage water.
Yeah.
And you would think, okay, if it has that effect on water that we can see, what effect is it having on our body?
Yes. Yep.
So I guess that it's hard to put a technical description or quality upon it, but it obviously has an effect.
Yes, yep. There's a quote I like where it says, really analysing music and breaking it apart into finer details. Talking about music is like dancing about architecture.
That's a great quote.
Yeah, so like you can experience it, but to talk about it, it's like what, how do you describe the colour blue? Or, like those sort of questions. So, and it's more, I love quotes, so I'm going to drop another one, but there's a thing, I think it's in the Buddhist philosophy, where they say the finger pointing to the moon is not the moon. And so when we talk about music, we're pointing to the moon, but what we're trying to say is that, like, in talking about it, we're not saying this is what it is, saying this is how we experience it. And so we're connecting to something, but we can't accurately describe it using words, which is why we have to produce sound, vibration, to express it differently, I think.
If there was a highlight of all the things that you've done, what would that highlight be?
Yeah, wow. A career highlight for me was being successful in another country and sustaining a living, and creating and contributing to a musical scene and the legacy and the history of it. Another career thing was, in that scene, I got to connect directly with my idols, who were the change makers in music. And so again, there was no degrees of separation. I was with them, learning from them directly. I guess something that I always wanted to be was a performer on stage, selling out arenas, and I mightn't have been up the front, but I definitely wanted to be on stage in front of people and feeling that back from the audience. But I guess over time I realized that I get the same thing through sharing knowledge, and I love looking at ways to contribute to people, to society, to things. The highlight for me was getting all that knowledge to come to the point where I realized that I get to share and give this stuff to people and see change.
So what is your role, the main role that you're doing now that is in the education sphere? What's that role, and what does it involve doing?
I'm doing a lot at the moment. My day gig's with APRA AMCOS.
Yeah.
And I work specifically in the Indigenous cultural and intellectual property space. So I have an amazing team there who are all artists themselves. So it's looking at ways copyright ISIP can work in the copyright space, and in a way that our communities can own their music in that space, and and control it and protect it.
That's a pretty important it's a very important role.
Yep.
One of the obvious questions, because it's come up just recently, is how does AI and the tech companies that are involved in AI figure into that whole?
Yeah.
Because I know that there's just been recently APRA has been fighting against the government giving away copyright, and there's new legislation that's been drawn up to protect copyright. Were you involved in any of that?
Indirectly, yeah. So that whole push was like from a bunch of collectively from a bunch of music organisations, ARIA, PPCA, APRA, AMCOS, all the state music bodies. Like there was a collective push to ensure that AI companies overseas don't have the rights to mine our intellectual property here without some
compensation.
Sort of compensation, yeah. But it's interesting in the Indigenous music space because it changes depending on where you are. A person who may be at such a high level of artistry and understanding of the business may know how to use copyright, exploit copyright to protect their cultural knowledge, whereas a person in a different community may see the sharing of that knowledge as something that is part of the culture, as a gift to somebody else, but they may not see that they're getting exploited through doing that. And so, there's a lot of different things that we see in our space, but there's not sort of a one-size-fits-all policy. It's allowing the communities to make determinations about what works best for them.
Everybody has experiences along the way that are not fun, shall we say. Experiences that they look back and they go, okay, I wish that hadn't happened, or it was either of their own making or thrust upon them. What's an experience that you've had that was quite shocking, nasty in any particular way, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, there's 3 moments that stood out, and they were the first 3 moments I stood on stage by myself.
Oh wow!
So the first time was I did in a Stedford. I was singing a Shirley Temple song of all songs, because I had a high voice at the time. I did the Stedford, and I dressed the part, like I looked amazing. And I lost to a student who had their, rocked up from high school and, didn't really put much pride in their appearance, but they performed. And I had a certain level of expectation going in because I was prepared and everything, dressed. But I got denied that, rightly so. Looking back, I can see why I didn't get that opportunity, but that was like triggered something. I was like, oh, yep. Like I'm very competitive when it comes to self-development if I see something. So that was the first step. The second one was I entered a country music talent quest when I was like 13, on the spur of the moment in the instrumental section, and I played a Sleepwalk by Santo and Johnny on the bass. And I didn't know how to cue the band to stop the song. So we played for like 7 minutes, and then somebody in the band ended up cutting the song. And so needless to say, I didn't win anything then, and I was a bit embarrassed about it. The third one was this taught me the importance of groove and counting off tempos. was I did another country music talent quest where I entered our practice, and I was playing a Shadow song of The Rise and Fall of Flingle Blunt. And the band said, can you count the song off? And to me, I just thought you just say 1, 2, 3, 4 when they start. That's exactly. So I just turned around the band. I said 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's the tempo they played at. And I hung on. I got through the song, but yeah, 3 major failures, and they were the first 3 times I was on stage featured.
Yeah. So you think, okay, I won't count off. I'll make sure it's in the right
Yeah,
tempo in future.
Yep. And so yeah, all those experiences, I never sort of reflected on myself like I beat myself up about it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I was like, what needs to be fixed? How can I change what I do?
Apart from your own embarrassment, was there any other negative connotations that came with it?
No, I got a lot of laughs from my dad and my teacher because they were like, oh, this, your game getting up there doing that. But it also ingrained in me a sense of like preparedness.
Yeah.
When you step on stage prepared.
Recording. You've obviously done a fair bit of like session stuff. Original material. Have you written any and recorded any of your own original material?
I'm working on it. I have written some. I've maybe written about 5 songs with lyrics, but the biggest project I did was recently with it was with Melbourne Symphony Orchestra.
Oh wow!
And it was called the First Voices program,
mm-hmm.
which is the MSO commissions an artist to write an 8-minute piece for I think a 14-piece orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea with this is that they would take this piece and tour it around regional Victoria with their 14-piece ensemble. And I had arranged stuff for jazz big bands, so I knew about writing and all that and how to use the tools, the Bayless, but orchestra was like, this is something new and different. So I did that. I started a year ago on this idea, and I recently finished it in June. The MSO performed it. And so, yeah, to me, music's music. The styles and genre doesn't really matter. It's either good or bad, and is it expressing what you want? But the thing that taught me doing classical music was, and writing original music was, no idea is a bad idea, for one. And 2, we were talking about cooking before. It's like, it just takes the right amount of spices and stuff. If you go overboard, it tastes terrible. If you add just enough, it's perfect. If you don't add enough, it's terrible. So it's being tasty and what was added to it. And also and I think this is something that a lot of artists know with original music, and it makes original artists vulnerable in that sense that when they're presenting their art to the world, there's vulnerability in presenting that because, you're standing up there naked on stage pretty much.
Yeah, it does feel like that.
Yeah.
It does feel like that. And because you're giving something, giving away a piece of yourself.
Yeah, yep. And it's like...
And you feel like you're being judged for that.
Yeah, yep. Whereas like playing other people's music, I guess if you were to play other people's originals as a background musician, it's like, it's easy. So that's where the studio stuff is sort of a different mindset. If laying down original ideas is a completely different approach to when you're playing bass for somebody, you're doing a sort of a template cookie cutter mold thing. And I'm doing a project at the moment for, it's sort of funk metal, and a shred, but yeah, really, really funky and deep pocket. And I got sent the track, and then the only instruction I got was play what you hear. I was like, wow, there's so many options. So, one track, I think I had 15 different bass parts for this 8-bar section. And so, yeah, that stuff is improvisation. I love improvising on the moment,
mm-hmm.
but when it comes to analyzing something that I've created, that's a different thing. It's a different challenge, yeah.
So if you've created all these different parts, how do you work out what you're going to, like, obviously you've got to work that down and go, okay, I'm going to go with that one.
Yeah.
What's the process for doing that?
The critic inside to say, that's good, that's enough.
Yeah, okay.
Or it's like, oh, wow, I didn't expect that, but that's what it needs. Or the other bit to say, yeah, you're thinking about it too much. Now you're showing off. You're doing something that the music is not telling you to do.
Okay.
And So yeah, it's like
I guess there is a temptation to do that if you're technically gifted. The temptation would be to dazzle people with the technical brilliance, which isn't necessarily good musically.
Yeah, because it's in the brain, whereas it's not in the expression.
Yeah,
and so like I like when you're in the zone, that's a beautiful place to be. But then when you try to impress people know, and the audience is the greatest. They're the greatest mirror to whether you're doing something, because if you show off for 3 songs, it's not going to last.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're honest, you'll sustain it, and they'll give that back to you and let you know.
Collaborations. Have you collaborated with other people, and what was that like?
Yeah, I love collaboration in creating original stuff. This project I was talking about. My wife's a musician. And she's not a bass player and doesn't know all the stuff, bits and pieces of bass and guitar, but an external perspective on something, it's like, yeah, cool. Like, it's not speaking from a sense of being dazzled by, technical brilliance.
Yeah.
It's more the sense of, it doesn't feel right, doesn't sound right. On stage, I guess in a nutshell with collaboration for me on stage, it's about making it feel amazing. And knowing that the way I can do that is, first I need to make it feel amazing, but I also need to figure out where I meet in the middle between me and the drummer, to find that pocket, and then the rest of the band. And when you do stuff, and again, it's that church mentality of like, what do you need to do? When do you need to do it? And when you invoke a reaction, what's the meaning behind that reaction? Is it a connection between yourselves? Is it a connection with music? Or is it just, give me some of your attention for a second, and transactional?
Do you see the role of bass in music as being a supportive instrument, or or is it like the real Jaco Pastorius thing where it's a great lead instrument?
Yeah.
How do you see the role, and how do you approach it, or is it a varied thing?
Yeah, it's a varied thing in the sense that if I'm playing pocket, if my role is groove, I see bass as like foundation. I see it as BASE, not BASS. And so when it comes to foundation and the bass of the music, the role it's a different role. It's more focused on, I like the word BASS because you need to, if you're playing right, and you shake people's, last 3 letters of bass, so that's the role of that. But in a technical sense, the definition of instrument, I looked at the definition of instrument in the dictionary, and one of them was the means to pursue an aim. So it's not the aim, but it's the way to get there. And so in understanding that, I was like, okay, so if I'm playing bass, why can't I play it like a saxophone? Why can't I do chords like a piano or play it like a drum set? And so they're different perspectives and different points of what am I trying to say? Of trying to do something in a musical sense, but ultimately you're still playing music. So the bass can serve as the role of bass, which is what it is in contemporary music and stuff like that, or can actually serve as the same as any other instrument. So I see it as 2 different things, and you can sort of blur the lines in between on most gigs, but yeah, depending on which one. You
mentioned Victor Wooten before, and I've watched a lot of his stuff, and where he explains a lot of very interesting thematic ideas. And I watched one where he talked about the sense of rhythm playing bass was more important than the actual notes. And he gave an example where he had a guy playing a guitar riff, and he just played every note. And it didn't matter what note he played, but it really mattered the rhythmical structure. Obviously, you're a fan of...
inspirational.
He's an inspirational player, and you're a fan.
Yep.
What other bass players do you find inspirational, motivational, and why?
Yeah. I guess the first bass player I saw that I was really blown away from was Verdine White from Earth, Wind & Fire.
Oh, okay.
Just because he just wasn't standing there playing bass.
And you were watching a lot of that sort of stuff and getting into that. And I guess this is an interesting way of thinking about it too, is they're a large band. So there's a lot of things going on. So he's obviously found a way to fit in musically in that space when it's really quite dense. Mm-hmm. When people say funk, one of the first things that comes to my mind is playing slap bass.
Yeah. Yep.
But obviously that's not necessarily true. Funk bass doesn't have to be slap.
It's emotion and feeling. It's like the difference between walking into a Chinese restaurant compared to Hungry Jack's.
Okay.
It's like there's different occasions for different things, but there's different ways to prepare chicken. You can fry it, you can grill it, you can put in spices, you can put breading on it, but ultimately it's the same thing. It's just packaged differently. And to me, it's all rhythm. One of the greatest pieces of advice I got from my mentor was he was teaching me the value of a 2-bar phrase, and at the end of the 2-bar phrase, there needs to be a release. So when you're playing either drums or bass, like you play the pocket, but there's always tension. So you need to have a moment where the groove's not always pushing forward. It can just stop for a second. And that could be a breath. That could be coming in lazy on beat 1, which is a big funk thing. So it's the importance of phrasing in music. And, he compared it to a sense of like phrasing of life. You've got centuries, decades, years, months. The smaller you break it down, it's different phrasing. But as you put the phrasing together, it creates this larger thing which is the music and the song. So it's utilizing rhythm and space and timing. But then with filling, as a bass player, it's not about trying to play a fill so you get people's attention. It's about what does the music need in order to keep moving? Does it need something to pull it back a bit? Or does it need something to push it? Or does it need something to let people know that you're not a MIDI file? And
well, that's what I was going to say. You're talking about being lazy on beat 1, and obviously not every one programs MIDI files and clocks it on to the exact beat. But that is a typical thing when you think about computer type music and quantizing quantizing so that you're actually taking the feeling out of the music. So, and bass is a quite a rhythmical element where the feel and groove of the song come from. I suppose it's the relationship between drums and bass, but the bass is a big determiner of that. What other things do you do with the bass to give a groove or a feel? Obviously with the funk, so it's a bit maybe being lazy on the 1.
Yep.
If you were to play rock, what is it? Is it being more aggressive in front of the beat, or is it behind? Well, how do you see the role of the bass in different genres of music?
I guess if you're playing with a drummer, it's figuring out where they sit in the pocket.
Okay.
Some drummers push, some pull, some sit right. And there's some drummers that I play with where from the first note, it's just on. And then other drummers where it takes a couple of bars and it's like, oh yeah, they sit here, so then I need to adjust, and we find that middle ground together. But
is that a relationship between kick and snare and hats? Because obviously, if they're playing a particular groove, you can make them feel like they're rushing if you're playing behind.
Yeah.
So to some degree, the bass can actually control whether the drummer's pushing or pulling.
Yep. It's the nicest way to control the time when you got a drummer that is not aware of their time, and you can help them find a happy medium. I remember playing in pub bands when the drummer would constantly rush. Mm-hmm. And so I purposely made the lengths of my notes longer and lay back on the beat, and it aligned it and it kept it in tempo. And then, but it's the feeling. It's when you feel rushed, you have a certain feeling. When you feel lazy, it's a certain feeling. And so groove is much like that as well. It's that emotion, that feeling. And I guess, it's aligning to what the other musicians you're doing, and finding out where they place it, lining to their energy. You could get into all the spiritual stuff, but from a musical perspective of it, it's playing the bass like a drum. Well,
it is a rhythmical instrument.
Yeah,
so I guess
yeah. And the notes are important, but it's not really the pitch, it's more about the length and where you place them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So again, you know, if I was to play a bass fill, what does the music need? A drum fill. So you could do that on bass, and you don't need to get all fancy. Some bass players are amazing at that naturally. I'm not that type of bass player. So I try to do what I feel the music needs in that moment in order to keep it at an equal temperament.
Interesting. I sort of got you off the path of talking about players that inspired you. What other bass players are there?
The main one that really got me stuck into jazz was Stanley Clarke. There was a live at Montreal concert, and I saw him play. Remember the Guitar Show? It used to be on TV.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And it was like so they had that on late night with these series of concerts, and so I saw Stanley Clarke, and I was like, whoa, like confident, like leading the band, technically proficient, musical, and stylish. Like I like dressing in suits and stuff like that. So that was the guy that sort of got me onto technique, and then I got onto Victor Wooten eventually. And started studying all the slap stuff that he put out. But it was more like a technical exercise. I didn't really appreciate Victor Wooten for the monster player he is in groove sense. It was more like I was more interested in the technical stuff. Being young, it was like, how can I play faster and, you know, flashy. So it was them. And then I got onto Motown, James Jamerson.
Yeah.
And then I started getting into the old soul stuff. My bass teacher at the time was Brett Hurst, and I forgot who he was touring with, but he showed me D'Angelo and Willie Weeks playing with Donny Hathaway. And so I was like, wow, that's a whole nother level of, you know, stanky funk. And in the midst of all that sort of stuff, like Bootsy Collins was there floating in the background. And you know, I always saw him as like the Hendrix of bass. Like, you know, it's like it was a complete package of music and art and expression. He was a bass player and a mean bass player, but he was this icon and this idol. And yeah, so it's sort of like he is on this separate level that I tried to get to. So yeah, it was a combination of all of them. Plus on the guitar side, it was like I was a big fan of Tommy and Phil, because my brother played guitar.
Well, it's interesting you talked about the stuff that you were into when you were young, with you playing the Shadows and all that instrumental stuff, because that's what they started out with.
Yeah.
And they were massive. Like Phil was a massive fan of the Shadows.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, like I remember seeing him when I was 15, and I didn't touch my guitar for about 4 days afterwards. I was like, oh, this is a waste of time. I'm never going to get to that level. But it was just, you know, tone, approach, melody, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Even the way Tommy played acoustic was something I was like, well, what's doing different there? Which led to Chet Atkins, and I was like, wow, like Chet Atkins is next level. And
that's a big thing that Tommy talks about, is playing the melody.
Yeah.
You know, there's all that technical stuff that he does, but you always know what the melody is.
Yes. Yep. And I feel like in jazz too, that's something we forget, is why we're playing. To me, the melody is the story.
Yeah.
It's like, and I use this analogy a lot. It's like the Mona Lisa. Like when you look at the Mona Lisa painting, you see the Mona Lisa in the front and then the background. But if you took the background away, it doesn't really make sense what's up front. But then if you took her away, it doesn't really make sense. So you need the melody as well as the background to make it work. And if you forget or ignore either one of those, it's a waste of time. You're not really connecting with what you can do and expressing it.
Would you say that playing jazz is your favourite style to play? Because of the improvisational factor?
Yeah, to an extent. I think it's more, it's all determined on who I play with and the situation and the audience. And like, I love playing gospel music.
Okay.
For the groove and the pocket and the ideas.
Is there much chance to play that sort of stuff in Australia?
Not much. There's an opportunity to transfer some of those ideas over into R&B gigs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But there's a line between playing too much and playing the part. So it's like, yeah, trying to find that happy medium. I know with myself at least, but yeah. So I mean that I love playing that for that reason. I love playing a good blues shuffle, locking in, making it feel good. Funk is another one. But the thing that I like most about jazz is I like to solo, but I like the way it feels when you're just playing a 4/4 feel and it's swinging, and you're locking in with the ride cymbal, and there's a sort of hypnosis that occurs from that lulls the audience into this space where time doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah,
If you had any piece of advice for a young musician starting out, someone in their, say, teens, what would that piece of advice be, and what would you suggest they do to get ahead?
practice hard things consistently. Set up a schedule, stick to the schedule, and find a way to measure or track your success against certain criteria. Through my teaching, I found a lot of students will practice periodically. They might do 3 hours one day and not practice for the rest of the week, and so they sort of lose that consistency that could be gotten if they just spent 10 minutes a day practicing the same thing until they mastered it, move on to something else. And that's one of the first things. Second thing is like surround yourself with people who you want to be. Like attracts like. So if you want to be a certain player, find the players in the scene that are doing that and see how they think. Because ultimately, we can get on stage and jam, but it's the diversity and the way we think about things and the philosophy of how we approach it that I find as a student studying music informed the way I approached it more so than watching someone play a scale or technique. There's practice, there's being in the right surroundings, and the main thing is like not giving up. Like a lot of people start something and it's too hard, and it's like that's a good sign. You need to find the challenge is not achieving it. The challenge is figuring out how to get to play it, and figuring out the way you learn. And so I guess as a student coming through, it's like be comfortable in the way you think, push your limits, and be prepared to think outside the box. And if someone gives you a piece of advice, be prepared to challenge it, take it on, challenge it, but then ultimately find the way you do things.
You're married. Have you got kids?
Yeah, I got one boy. Yeah.
How old is he now?
He's 3 in a couple of months.
Wow.
Yeah.
As he gets older, is music something you would encourage him to do?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I wouldn't say encourage. I'd say just put himself in the surroundings where he can do that and be in that space.
Or make the choice for himself. How much of it he wants to take on.
Yep. We have musical instruments around the house. Like my wife's a singer as well, so the house is musical. But I guess the biggest thing that having a child has taught me about being a musician is the focusing on feeling, focusing on connection, and using what I learned in music and how I would talk to myself, and finding the things that don't work and not passing that on to someone else. And so, understanding vibrations, understanding emotion, understanding that if somebody's being loud, you can change that by being soft, and using that to sort of find that happy medium.
Action and reaction.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I look at life very musical in that same sense. It's like, what's that? It's sort of, it's not a good analogy, but I sort of see it as a compressor on a sound wave. Like it's like this, but it's like just having a consistency and where your lows are and where your highs are, and being able to communicate from that space consistently. And it's a challenge, but it's something that I notice has improved the quality of relationships with other people, as well as relationship with myself, as well as relationship with music and my instrument and things like that. So it's helped me to be a better parent, but he's also taught me how to be a better musician.
Very cool. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to discuss? Have you got any pressing pressing political agendas that you wanted to put out to the world. I guess one of the big things, I mean, we touched on it. How do you see the role of AI with music these days? I watched a thing today online where it was a high-level studio pro who was talking about, and he was teaching young students, and his take on it was, my job is to try and keep music as human as possible. He said, but in the last 12 months, I have not done one studio session where AI was not involved in some way. So, and his take on it was, you really need to understand what AI is, what it does, and work out how to incorporate it the best way you possibly can to help you create a great musical result.
Yep.
Have you experimented with AI?
Yeah, I like it as a tool. Same way I like having my music on my phone. Whereas when I was younger, it was a CD and a cassette tape. Whereas, my father's era was probably 8-track and LP, vinyl. And so like I see the progression of that being a good thing if used properly. It's a great, the thing I like most about AI and music is that it's the immediacy of getting your idea out and putting into something, and then so that you're not.
So you're seeing it as a way of helping your ideas, not the other way round, where you're looking to AI to create the ideas.
Yeah, because it's more. I still sort of see using AI as the vehicle to create ideas as MIDI file.
Yeah.
Back in the day, like it was something you used, but it wasn't the same as playing with a real band.
Yeah.
And so that I could be wrong, but I'm yet to see and understand the human element of AI and how it can replicate that. But as a tool within music, I'm all for it. Like I have some pedals that, it's this big, whereas in the past, if I had all the effects that I wanted within its pedal,
it'd be yeah.
So like technology is great. I think it's due to the eye of the beholder, the hands of the people that control it. I think the main problem with our AI is the companies that are trying to profit off that, and people buy into the profit of artistry and not the creation of it.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, yeah. Economically, the world's in a tough sort of a place. And everybody's trying to make a buck.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's that thing, there's a difference between someone trying to make a buck and someone trying to create art.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can create art, which in turn can generate revenue.
Yep.
As opposed to, I guess everyone's always looking for a shortcut.
The creation element of is the human part, and it's something that goes back thousands of years in every culture, is the collaborative community engagement of music and art.
Well, I guess it's that thing too you were talking about before, about the whole concept with music, and this is something I think that has been lost at times with recording, but you were talking about the groove, and it's the fact of where you place the note in the time schedule. And if you're playing, a lot of music being recorded on computers is what they call quantized, which means you're taking the timing of a human being and putting it on the grid. So it's basically, it's taking the groove and the feel out of the music. And I guess it's one of those things, I don't know about if you've been guilty of it, but I've definitely been guilty of it. How do you fight that?
I think knowing history. Why does everything need to be quantized? Emotion and feel. We were talking about time. Like, I got this idea that the mechanical syncopation and metronomic time of recorded music. I think I read this somewhere. It's not my idea, but I stole it from somebody. But it's talking about the Industrial Revolution, trains, engines.
Okay. Yep.
It created a time. So then when you saw trains come in, rock and roll came in with the train beat. Johnny Cash they used it in country. And so it was this metronomic representation of time. Where if you go back before that and you look at music before engines and trains and cars and everything, it was a lot more free flowing because that was life. And the thing with groove, I love talking about groove and time because it's perfect imperfections to me. It's like that's what music is. If it's too perfect, it's not real, and if it's imperfect to the extent where it's unlistenable, it doesn't really resonate. But
so there's a fine line in between there somewhere.
Yeah, yep. And it's just that right balance of things, and I feel like times like that too. Like, you know, like September, Superstition. There's a lot of songs that move, but you don't notice it when you're dancing to it. But when you play it with a click, you're like, oh wow, there's some movement here. But the feeling that it generates is much more powerful than trying to play it in time.
Yeah, interesting. Well, with that, I think we'll say thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you,
Nate.
Appreciate it.
Man, hopefully I'll put down below in the description all the details of how you can contact Nate through social media and all the things that you're up to. So people can go and check that out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Cheers.